former Harris Communications Director Ashley Etienne. Alyssa, I mean, first of all, how do you think President Biden did, and what do you think President Trump is going to, where's he going to attack him on this one?
Powerful and historic remarks, and I thought that the imagery of presidents are really custodians of the Oval Office, of the Resolute desk. They're people voted in, but it will be passed to other people, reminding people, as Van said, the juxtaposition to Donald Trump losing and refusing to leave. And this is somebody who's not yet lost and is willfully passing the torch to somebody. I think that will stick with people. Donald Trump was watching on Air Force One. Trump Force One. He put out an image of him watching. I think that the argument now is basically Kamala Harris and Democrats took him out. The Democratic elites stepped in to put someone more competitive in. But that's not really a helpful message. I don't know that resonates with Republicans. I think they need to start taking the case directly to Kamala Harris. And I imagine they'll stop talking about Joe Biden going forward.
Scott?
They already stopped talking about him.
Odd to me that just a few weeks ago, heck, a few days ago, most Democrats were still looking into television cameras and saying that this person is up to another 4 years. I mean, he's obviously running on fumes. They weren't cheap fakes, no matter what the government told you. In fact, I still think it's a legitimate scandal how they ever arrived at the decision to run again in the first place. I still think his family and his top staff have a lot of explaining to do. Most of this seemed like a stump speech to me. It seemed like he gave the speech that he always wanted the campaign to be about, which was he wants credit for this record that he thinks is historic and was not getting out of the campaign. I'm still shocked, by the way, at how easy it is to overthrow the president. I mean, I think of this office, I think we all think of this office as being impenetrable. He got 81 million votes in 2020, and then he got 14 million more. But at the end of the day, he was no match for a handful of party bosses who run the Democratic Party. So, look, I'm happy to give him all the grace that he deserves because he's on his way out. But at the end of the day,
yeah, it really sounds like that.
That's coming next.
A bunch of people looked into TV cameras over the last days, weeks, and months and told you a lot of things that were not true about this president. I hope he is okay for the next few months, but it was obvious it was time, not tonight, but a while ago.
That's
Ashley, what did you think of the talk tonight?
You know, I think President Biden is beloved by so many here in this country and around the world. Those of us who've been able to work with him and who know him love him as a leader and who he is as a leader, what he represents. He will go down in history as one of the most effective presidents in American history.
Say what?
Not just his record, but his love for this nation makes him, in my opinion, an object lesson and an inspiration for the next generation of leaders. The line that I loved most was this one, and that was, and it makes me emotional just saying it, that the cause of the nation is larger than any one of us. And you contrast that with what we saw from Donald Trump today and from the Republican Party that's become a complete cult of personality, willing to give it all up, sacrifice it all for someone who says he wants to be a dictator on day one, that he wants to terminate the Constitution, that he puts retribution ahead of the interests of the American people. So to me, this is a really sad day, and it makes me very emotional. But what's very clear, and the president closed out on this note, that the fight for the soul of our nation continues. But there are many of us who are saying today, well done, thy good and faithful servant.
Child, please.
David, I want to play something else that the president said tonight.
I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union is not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we, the people. And we can never forget that. And I never have.
It's so much to me, David, listening to that and just the whole tone of the president tonight. You know, there was so much talk at the convention before Donald Trump actually spoke that the assassination attempt had changed him somehow. That people were putting that word out. I think Scott was anticipating that as well.
72 hours of grace.
Yes, and Clearly, that is not the case. In fact, he said at a rally, I think it was today or yesterday, he said, I'm supposed to be nice. They say something happened to me when I got shot. I became nice. And then he went on to say, I'm not going to be nice.
And then
But the thing is, what I realized, just because a person goes, so okay, God created this person to be who they were, but there's a certain level of him that I believe that Trump, he started accepting, he accepted Christ, but God never tells you just to be completely different from who he created you to be. And I think what we're seeing is not just no 72 hours of grace. I think this is just who he is. But of course, within the first 48 hours, you're just like, you still trying to get your scruples together that I was going to die 2 days ago.
1/2 centimeter to the other side, left, right, whatever.
But to think that,
it was only history.
but to think that the man was going to walk around and just, hi everybody, we just have to get out here and God, that's not who God still created him to be.
And we don't want. I don't want no weak president. I'm sorry, I don't.
Right.
I want a man that is going to. I want Trump to be able to voice his views, his opinions, his expertise, and be able to make strategic decisions with his team, administration, and so forth and so on. And there has been a shift.
Yes.
People have seen it. Even when we saw him talking earlier in Minnesota, he still looks so much lighter. He just does not look the same. And the way he's coming across in his speech is still him, but it's still a slight difference.
And God uses the people. Like I said this before, he'll use the people that you don't think he's supposed to use. But
you can't expect people who don't.
But God will he will shake up a moment to make sure that you reverence him and know that I put you here and I gave you this and the chips fell in order because I allowed that to happen. And I believe that he found, even though you're not seeing everything online, like him just on the ground praying and stuff like that, you don't know the relationship and you don't know the conversations now that he prays about and talks about in the silence. Now, all that not going to show. Not everybody shows their belief
and also, you cannot make him. You can't make people who already are hoping and wanting his downfall, wishing for his downfall, to actually see it.
Yeah.
Especially if they're not even tapped into God or who God is and how he moved anyway.
Correct.
How connected are these people here that we watching? Especially him.
You already know.
and displayed how he was not
Yeah.
and
But here tonight, this man has had his entire career upended, the job he's looked for, this very difficult decision that he's made, and whatever he may feel personally about it and whatever anger he has expressed behind the scenes, which people have reported on, he had a lot of grace tonight.
Yeah, he did have a lot of grace. And I just want to say, Scott, you're my friend, man, and I love you, and I know you're a good person. You got to take a step back here and show the grace that you said you wanted to show. President wasn't toppled by party bosses. He was toppled by the reality of his situation. It was the American people who made a judgment. It was helped along by your party for 5 years, but they made a judgment, and he recognized the judgment they made, and he decided that the stakes in this fight are such that he could better advance the cause that he believed in by stepping aside. That was a big thing to do and a hard thing to do. And I'm going to give you some political advice, though you're very, very good at this. I would step back and give him that grace tonight. I think the American people would want you to do that. I certainly feel like he's earned it.
I think what's interesting about Biden is that he is tired. He has changed. He's changed even in the past couple of months. But he was more coherent, low energy, but more coherent than Trump ever is with high energy. And so I think part of the thing is hard for us on our side of the aisle to try to wrestle with.
What planet are you on?
Everything he said made good sense.
Hit the pause button.
His voice was
Check the
soft.
Kale real quick.
He needs to retire.
You said he's more on. I cannot.
Where you going?
I need to check the Kale real quick.
Oh, hold on, baby. Hold on. I thought this was you.
And he is retiring. Donald Trump had a lot of energy today. but almost everything he said made no sense. And so I think it's just that. I think that's the thing we wrestle with.
Well, and I think we live in this polarized political moment where things are often a Rorschach test. Because I'm looking at Twitter, seeing how I'm not where most of the Republican Party is. I'll fully admit that, but where most Republicans are, how they're receiving this. And what they're saying is basically it's an incredibly divisive speech. And to me, I'd say, what about promoting democracy, passing the baton to the next generation of leadership, the nation being bigger than any one man in your ambitions is divisive? That may be more of a reflection of the leader that the Republican Party has chosen to follow. I don't think George Bush, your boss, would have found that to be a deeply divisive speech.
How do you say?
I love you too, David, and I really do, and I respect you, and I hear what you're saying. I think what you're asking Republicans to do is to overlook a lot of dishonesty that came right out of this White House, that came right out of the Vice President, people who work for him, his family, other Democrats in Congress. You're asking the country to overlook a lot of dishonesty about Joe Biden's abilities, capabilities, his capacity to serve for another 4 years, and so on.
Are you talking about Biden or Trump?
I'm talking about.
Literally, Democrats make the same argument.
I'm talking about Joe Biden. He arrived at this. He did arrive at this decision with a little push, not just from the goodness of his own heart, but you have to admit, a little bit of a push from the party boss.
He concluded that this was the party bosses were reflecting, the consensus of the American people who made a judgment. But Scott, I mean, there's so many Republicans who I talk to who are overlooking far more than this. And they'll tell you that about Donald Trump. I mean, that is really the story of the Republican Party right now. I said to you last week, the fact that the man you work for and who you revere and who you love was booed at the Republican convention last week after devoting his entire life to the Republican Party reflects how totally this party is in the thrall of a guy who is morally and ethically challenged and who left the presidency. You talk about deposing a president. That's exactly what he tried to do, overturn a free and fair election. So, and a lot of Republicans know that. They've said it, and yet they're setting that aside. So I don't think you're not on a strong footing here in making this argument.
No.
Well, my argument is simply that when you're trying.
No, what he's saying is you're not a strong foot because you're in the midst of the Democratic world right now. So anything you say is you have no weight in this room. Basically, what he's trying to say.
Trying to make a judgment between two parties here. I fully and freely admit that both parties have warts. But we're acting like there's no warts on this situation. This is weird. He won the primary without a serious challenge. He told us all he could serve. His party told us he could serve. And he's clearly diminished.
That's right.
And I think he ultimately arrived in the right spot. As you know, on the night of the debate, I said this candidacy has fallen. He ultimately got here. But it was pretty torturous how they got here, and I think a lot of people burned a lot of credibility on the road to getting here.
Well, that's right.
Go ahead.
It's tough to speak in binaries, but that's where we are at this point in this race. And some of us were there when Donald Trump was being told by advisors consistently, you lost, you need to concede. There's no way that Vice President Pence could change the results of this outcome. And he still refused to, and he still allowed the events of January 6th to unfold.
He knew it
so I
wasn't
think
right.
if you're even comparing the two, it's so far apart. Not to suggest Democrats were incredibly untransparent about that. I think that there was a lot of gaslighting, a lot of misleading the public about his shape. But it's such a world apart, those two.
By the way, we've just gotten some pictures. I haven't seen them yet, but I believe they were taken during the president's remarks. You can see against the wall his family there watching him by his side.
That's tough, man. That's tough.
Kate?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think ultimately Joe Biden made the right, and also I think everyone would agree, maybe Scott wouldn't agree, but I think most people would agree, selfless decision to step down. And I think, to Alyssa's point, yes, speaking in binaries is hard, but to suggest that somehow the Democratic Party has been opaque about this, when what ultimately happened is Democrats had a very public, painful discussion about all of this, and Joe Biden didn't have to step down. It's his office to relinquish. It's his nomination to relinquish. And he chose to make that decision in service of a belief that the country and our democracy is more valuable than his own personal ambition. And when you have not only Donald Trump refusing to accept that he lost the election in 2020, but then the leadership of the Republican Party standing behind him. And you want to talk about people going out to cameras and saying things they know aren't true. I mean, my God, you've had a parade of the Republican Party for 4 years arguing that, you didn't see what you saw. You didn't, Donald Trump didn't actually abet these people going, taking up arms and going into the Capitol. So ultimately, ultimately, you have somebody in President Biden who made a decision that is about loving his country. And you have somebody in Donald Trump who said, I only love me.
We'll continue this discussion in a moment. I want to go to...
What a joke. Absolutely not. That man, leave it up to him, he'd still be in office.
No, he was forced. Crazy. Whatever.
Please,
he was
leave
forced.
it up to him, he'd still be in office. I saw his family over there, and they knew. I have no sympathy for that. They knew the condition and shape he was in and still supported him to continue to stay in office when they knew he was not capable to lead this country.
Did you see Hunter Biden's face? You know what that look was? You know what that look was?
I saw it.
Do not switch the plan.
No, he was like, no.
That's not what I was thinking.
My free ride is over.
Or he's like, please just tell him that you're gonna stand in the race, please.
Yeah, I saw that face.
Please.
His face was like the look of
no. He was like,
no, Ted. Y'all, come on, please. I'm sorry. They knew. They were in more proximity and saw him more one-on-one than we ever would have as Americans who don't have access, who don't have the privy to being in that environment on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Quit playing games.
quit playing.
Please.
Child, boom. Get out of here.
Well, I mean, I like how he stood his ground. He was like, come on, y'all know we were lied to by y'all's left side. Don't play.
They can't agree
and
to that.
They forced him out. Like he said, the bosses.
The party bosses.
Yes, the party bosses said, look, bro, it's time for you to give it up. I'm sorry, but this ain't it. We're going to be going down for real if we wait to the last minute to pull out. Because you ain't going to be able to stand up come election time. Let alone talking to somebody, please. Okay.
My God, could you see them trying to roll him in now? His arms kind of stuck like they're in a cast.
And that's torture. I mean, let's just be humane. I know we crack a lot of jokes about Pojo, but I'm just saying, let's just be humane and for real at some point. That is just not fun. I wouldn't want my dad to be up there under those conditions. I'd be telling my dad, come on, Dad, you'll be on vacation right now on the beach for real.
Old Joe gonna look like he looks like a saint compared to Kamala. Because he had more stuff to run on. He had more knowledge and skill in that space. Whereas her, the passage of time is not more than the passage of time.
Right.
You know,
I'm just saying with Joe, let's not lose sight.
Yeah.
We'll get on another rant.
Yeah.
But I just want to make it clear that let's just be humane.
Yeah.
In support of him, yes, he may have wanted to continue all the way. Pride, ego, want to continue to do whatever the job to his best abilities, all of that. But no, I mean, he could not do it. And I would not want my dad under those. If that was my dad, I would be telling my dad, you need to sit down, Dad. It's time to go. And I know I would be telling my dad that. I would be telling my dad, Dad, no, it's time for you to sit down. Now, if Trump was my dad on the other hand, child, please, come on, Dad, let's go. Are you sure you want to do this after what they tried to do? Okay, come on, let's go. Because the vitality is flip the coin. One side is completely opposite of the other side. Come on, let's go. Please, let's not play.
All right, y'all, 2024, be more.
Talk less.
We'll see you on the next
Love
one.
you guys.